DDG episode 90. There's not an 8 in front of that number anymore. That's hard to say. 90.
An impressive number.
Yeah.
The only problem is we're too close to 100 and people are going to expect us to do something fancy, but we're two humble boys from the Midwest. We're not going to really do anything fancy for 100.
I'll tell you what, we'll go live for 100 and we'll release it on Thursday at 6 a.m.
Okay. Yeah. We'll
maybe
somehow
5
do that.
maybe 5:59 a.m. So
No, we'll just do the Twitch stream at the time we say we're going to do it instead of being like 10 minutes over,
26
which
minutes
is usually
late.
my fault.
Yeah. All right, we are Digital Days Gaming. We have done 89 consecutive weeks, and that's how you get to 90 episodes. We release on Thursdays at 6 a.m. on podcast services of choice. We are live on Twitch Tuesdays at around 5-ish, usually 5:15, 5:30 Eastern Time, twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming. And that is, for the most part, it. There's a whole bunch of cool stuff in the show notes you can click on, links to the website, Facebook, any of those networks. Discord is all in there in the show notes. We have a Teesprings account if you want to buy some t-shirts. I don't have any like tank tops or cutoffs yet for the heat wave that some of these places are getting. Maybe we'll get one of those like cooling shirts that you like you rinse off and it's like with our logo on it so that people can stay cool all the time. I don't know. It's hot.
90s as fuck.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It is hot here in Michigan this week right now. It's supposed to cool off in a couple days. So, but yeah, so teesprings.com, Digital Days Gaming. You can use Twitch subscriptions, whether it's through Amazon Prime or if you just choose to use a subscription out of your own pocket. That's super helpful. We got a Patreon. All the links are in the show notes. And we're going to jump right into the news. We got a few things to talk about.
Yeah, so we got some light news to start with, but then we'll get to the heavy hitter at the end. But Ubisoft announced Tom Clancy's, is it Cross-Defiant or X-Defiant?
X-Defiant.
X-Defiant.
Or at least
Horrible name.
they're calling it X-Defiant, yeah.
Yeah. It is a first-person shooter. Looks like it's heavily inspired by like Counter-Strike, Overwatch, Valorant, probably a little closer to Valorant. It takes place in the Tom Clancy universe. It looks like it's borrowing characters kind of from The Division, Ghost Recon, and Splinter Cell. That's why I thought it was Cross instead of X. But...
Yeah, I think it's more or less that they're doing things like I think the gist of it. I feel like the little bit that I saw on Twitter yesterday was people talking about it being a bad name, and then trying to justify the name is that it's kind of being defiant of the Tom Clancy rules. If that makes sense.
Yeah, like you can only get away with this because Tom Clancy's dead.
Yeah. So like I mean, obviously, like the weapons, are always been like tacticalness and they've been realistic, and they focused on that on the trailer a little bit of like these are real guns with real attachments, and obviously, I mean, there'll be skins and stuff. It's I know you'll get to it. It's a free to play, 6v6 competitive style shooter, but I think that It's essentially the first 30-second pitch was Tom Clancy shooter game meets a punk rock style.
Yeah.
So
it looks kind of like gameplay wise, it looks fine. It looks like a competent first person shooter. Ubisoft has done this before, but it also just messaging wise, it just seems like kind of a mess of like what exactly its identity is going to be. I almost preferred this if it was its own thing as opposed to writing like Tom Clancy's previous franchises.
Yeah, and there's definitely a crowd that they're going after, and they're going after the like you mentioned, the Division, the Ghost Recon, Splinter Cell crowd. Like that's who they're going after. My first initial concern is really the only competent first person shooter that Ubisoft has released has been Rainbow Six. Mm-hmm. Shooting in the Division is third person and Ghost Recon is third person. It's never felt, I guess I would never say it's ever felt bad, but it's never felt good. So it's always kind of been in between. So that does concern me a little bit. And it's Ubisoft San Francisco. So this is like the team that made South Park, I believe.
Yeah, I get it.
I think. Yeah, I mean, it's not.
It's hard with Ubisoft.
It's not.
Know
who. It's not massive. It's not Rainbow Six team. Like so, I'm sure that to your point, like you just said, it's hard with Ubisoft. Like it wouldn't be. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody that was like second or third in command of Rainbow Six gameplay has been transferred to the San Francisco studio to work on this game. It's something to that extent. But there are, like, I mean, some of the bullet points that you have in here, there's some PC playtesting going on early August, I believe. the release date is unknown. The only thing that I like about this so far is like, okay, it appears that Ubisoft has their foundation of what they are hoping to achieve with this, and then they will, in classic Ubisoft fashion, look at players' data and feedback and maybe start adjusting and molding this before it comes out, which I think is a great tool in comparison to Hyperscape that kind of just came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is when do we get the message that Hyperscape is scrapped at this point? Because I don't see them being able to support multiple free-to-play first-person shooters.
Right, and this is not Heartland. So
no, yeah, and there's another one coming.
So like, and this isn't this isn't the Tom Clancy's The Division Heartland. So that's, which is supposed to be coming, in, like, let's say it comes in the next 12 or 18 months, you're gonna have a publisher with 3, to your point, with Hyperscape, sorry, whichever one it is, because I don't know it name because it's not relevant. If it hangs out, like, you got 3 free to play games going on while you have like still stuff going on with the Division 2 as a games as a service, you still have For Honor going, you still have Rainbow Six going, like, there's a lot. So and obviously Ubisoft has the studios to support it, but I mean, this is not, I mean, I guess the surprise, like, this should have been a Ubisoft Forward. Like, what they showed yesterday should have just been at the end of the Forward.
Yeah, especially the way they just kind of shadow dropped, like, I think it was like 24 hours.
It showed up like Sunday. I got somebody tweeted at me, Billy tweeted at me Sunday about what I thought about it. It was an IGN tweet, or it was Ubisoft tweeting it, and then within that thread, that like it was like a tweet of Ubisoft like teasing it, and then within that thread, IGN like quote tweeted and said, "Hey, we got exclusive time with it," and they showed like 10 seconds of footage right after the teaser trailer or the tease image, and I'm like, what? Like,
it's a weird way, but I wonder if that was just sort of the thing where people got really excited within a couple seconds and were like, Splinter Cell, Splinter Cell, Splinter Cell, and then it was just like, okay, we need to just let IGN.
Yeah, I saw it like when I saw, like, as dumb as it sounds, like when I saw the logo, the white background, and like the bright, I don't know what else to call it, but like the bright yellow star that kind of flashed behind the Tom Clancy like figurine. I'm like, this is weird. Like, it didn't have the militarization look to it that they, like, the Division is a dark style game, like it's gray and orange and green, like, and this was like bright and vibrant, so it was already something that was like, okay, like, I'm okay with it. Like, I mean, I'll definitely check it out. I don't know if it's gonna have any legs at all. Like, I mean, and that's really hard to tell. I mean, I guess at the same time I would, 5 years ago I would look at Fortnite like, oh, that's gonna fail. So
yeah, well, yeah, especially the Fortnite's course
right
to get where it was. But yeah, there's obviously always a chance for like a free to play game to catch fire.
Yeah.
Ubisoft does have a track record of supporting things through hard times, though they're now hitting a point where they're shifting enough that if this doesn't hit, I mean, like, Hyperscape didn't really hit, so I think they're going to quietly get rid of that.
I think what hurt Hyperscape was one platform too.
Yeah, and it was a very slow rollout for that, or at least it felt like it, even though they kind of just.
And that's a battle royale, and this is not. Like, I had a conversation with somebody on Twitter. This is 6v6. This is not battle royale. It's probably going to be a little bit. I'm sure there'll be a couple game modes, but I'm sure it'll be objective based for the most part. And then there was a couple conversations in our Facebook group about like microtransactions, and I don't want to have to pay for skills and abilities. And I think similar to how the Division handled it, I don't know how Hyperscape has handled their microtransactions, but I could see you like buying the season passes or the the whatever content drops that they're doing, and that getting you access to, I guess I'll just call them, like, because they call them this in Rainbow Six, like, operators. So you get access to the operators, but I could also see a way to unlock the operators with in-game currency. So.
Yeah, and because it's being crossed over with all the Tom Clancy games, pre-order the latest Tom Clancy game, and then you unlock that
complete
character
a task in Division 2, get a jacket in X Defiant.
Yeah, exactly. Just like, hey, you can only get this hero or whatever they're going to call them, this operator,
right,
by pre-ordering another game. So there's definitely ways that they could take advantage of it or use this as a tool set for just promoting other games, whether that works out for them. Because, like, Valorant's popular, but Valorant's popularity
is
has
hardcore
shifted.
competitive.
Yes,
Like people get pissed if something bad happens to them.
like it had Valorant had like the hopes of like mass appeal when it first came out, and they did the really smart thing with the Twitch streamers. But
Hmm.
then very soon after that launch, it was like, no, 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 this is only for the hardcore, and its
Hmm.
popularity dipped a little bit because they only had a hardcore like
And,
audience
and
for
it's
that.
PC only, and it doesn't support
Yeah,
controller. Like those are all
yeah,
things. Like those are things that tend to like that kind of pushed me away from it. I mean,
yeah,
you and I have talked about all the time. You're like, hey, that might be a game for you to really dig into mouse and keyboard. Um, but like and I just don't know if I have the patience right now to try to dig into a mouse and keyboard game. So
yeah, and it's they're definitely like going wide with this. Like it's coming to every single platform
yeah.
except the Switch. Though by the time this comes out, maybe actually have the Switch Pro going for it, and it will be on every platform. But yeah, I mean, I'll give Ubisoft a shot. Like I kind of give them a shot with every game. Sometimes they're impressive, other times it's a little disappointing. But a free to play game isn't too harmful. I just kind of wish they would just come out and just say like, we have absolutely no plans for Splinter Cell over the next couple years, just to get it out of the way, because it's at a certain point it just comes across as like bad PR that they just kind of ignore this franchise or just bring Sam Fisher or Splinter Cell back in like the ways that just frustrate people, like, including Splinter Cell in this or that mobile game where Sam Fisher is just like an unlockable character in the mobile game,
Hmm.
or putting him in which Ghost Recon game was it that he was in?
Yeah, like
Uh
Breakpoint. I think he just kind
Breakpoint.
of showed up in Breakpoint for like something.
Yeah, for like an event. So I think Ubisoft just kind of has to come out and be like, we absolutely have no plans for Splinter
Hmm.
Cell as a standalone game, just to kind of kill the hype a little bit every time they're making an announcement, or at least to set expectations. But let's move on to the next story. I had to include this story because it's Dave and mine's favorite thing. It's numbers. I don't know why this has turned into our favorite thing, because it's
Because
kind
it
of scary
happens
for the games
every other
industry.
week.
Yeah, it's also kind of scary how often stuff gets
Uh,
acquired.
yeah, it's scary how often stuff gets acquired. Yes.
Yeah. Uh, so Tencent has acquired Sumo Digital for $1.3 billion. I know Dave, when he hears Sumo Digital for $1.3 billion, he's probably like, what? Sumo Digital for $1.3 billion.
I didn't know
But
how much they really did until now. Or you
they have
forget.
10,
Yeah.
yeah, they have 10 to 15 studios. I forget what the exact count
Uh
is, but
huh.
they have several studios, which kind of accounts for that. Their last game obviously was Sackboy's Big Adventure. They also did Crackdown 3, and Little Big Planet 3. So they kind of are like a mercenary studio, I would equate them to, of just like they can pick up the ball for established franchises and deliver like, competent games. So Crackdown 3 was kind of bad, but like Sackboy's Big Adventure, pretty good. Little Big
Yeah.
Planet 3
As soon as it goes on
was
sale
great.
digitally, I'm buying it. But I only have a digital
Yeah, yeah,
PS5.
yeah. So Sumo Digital is very competent studio, and I didn't know that they had
Yeah.
10 plus studios under them. I knew they had a few.
Yeah, I honestly thought it was just like the stuff I remember them from is just the Sackboy stuff and Little Big Planet stuff, and I didn't realize that. And I guess we'd have to dig into the other studios and see what games they did, and I probably would be surprised. I'm sure it's a lot of PC stuff too.
Yeah, PC and mobile stuff for some of their non-Sumo named studios, but
Right.
they have a lot of mobile stuff, which makes sense for Tencent. Tencent's just trying to get whatever they can in the games industry. Tencent, I believe, is up to 30 studios now, as in like they fully own or they have a like good
Minority
stake
stake,
in.
yeah, or
Yeah,
majority stake. I'm sorry.
they definitely are continuing to go, and this deal isn't going to change anything for Sumo. It just kind of gives them financial security. They're going to continue to have their CEOs, and Tencent and Sumo basically confirm that like they are still going to be working with third party
Hmm.
people. I'm sure we'll get an original Sumo game now that they have this financial security, but they have so many studios specifically formed to be like a mercenary studio when people need them. Like Sumo is basically a support studio for PlayStation, and I would imagine Tencent made this acquisition because that is a huge part of Sumo
Hmm.
Digital's
And, and
business.
like we've said about Tencent since for months now, they don't appear to be like this like owner that messes with the stuff. Like they're just there and they're kind of just the money. And I'm sure that they have some leverage, but they're not like we're not hearing about them like shutting. They buy something and shut a bunch of stuff down, or completely change the direction, or change all the studios to mobile studios making free to play games that are gotchas. Like they haven't done anything that I can see like that yet. I mean, or people going, "Oh, Tencent owns us now. We're screwed."
Yeah, we haven't noticed anything yet. This could be something that could be scary in a couple years. It could like reveal itself
Yeah.
at the last second. It could be that meme of Vince McMahon taking off the hood and being like, "It was me all along," sort of scenario for this. But as of right now, Tencent acquiring them isn't necessarily a bad thing. Short term, long term, we'll see what happens. I think all of the monopolies happening could have long term negative effects, kind of like how in the movie industry there's only like 3 or 4 studios that control everything, and we're kind of getting to that point in games where it's like Sony, Microsoft, and Tencent own a huge majority of the games business, and you have Activision and EA kind of under that, and then Nintendo with their secret studios that we don't really even know the name of, but we know they exist. So long-term effects, this definitely will have an issue, potentially. But short-term, it just shows that there's money in the business, and it's adding security to to a very unstable business. That is the video game business. So, just another one acquired. So if you're keeping count at home of who's with who now, it's getting like a tighter and tighter list. We're probably like a year away from just like straight up indie studios being acquired. Like Sony just being like, "Oh, we got to buy Young Horses. We got to get that next." Do
you ever see? I guess now that you kind of brought it up, I've been thinking about it. Now that you've been talking, do you see Tencent trying to make like a cloud app for stuff that they own?
They are. They've been trying to do that in China. Okay. I believe they have one in China.
Because do you see them possibly trying to be build this library of competition to something like the evolving Game Pass or PS Now?
That is something they're definitely doing in China. Whether they expand that, like out of China is kind of just up to where the market goes. Like right now, Microsoft is probably paying a heavy premium to get games over to Game Pass, which will be beneficial to a company like Tencent, who owns now a ton of studios and games. But in a couple years, once Game Pass starts to plateau, that's when someone like Tencent could be like, "Hey, you need competition. We have all these studios. Here's Tencent's streaming service outside of China."
Right.
So I can see them doing that in probably like 3 to 5 years. Yeah. But right now, everyone should just take advantage of Microsoft.
Yeah. No. I mean, I just think that, I feel like the next 6 to 9 years, like we're not going to buy a PlayStation or an Xbox or a box. We're going to access like a Steam app or a PS app or a Xbox app.
That is definitely.
And now it's probably going to be a Tencent app. I don't think it'll be called Tencent, but they'll figure something out to call it. It'll be Ouya 2.0. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be something. They'll buy the Atari name and then the Atari VCS online. But I think that's definitely what, like, when you see Embracer, like buying studios, I feel like they're acquiring these studios because they're less like Microsoft is in this, this licensing business right now, and Amazon is dabbling its toes in it. Google was at a certain point, so there's money to be made just licensing.
I mean, unfortunately, like not unfortunately, but like whether you like it or don't like it, from like a TV model, like Paramount Plus, Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon, like they're showing that. Disney and Marvel are a different animal, but the amount of money that Black Widow generated on opening weekend just through the premium $30 subscription thing that they charged for it, like showed that like that's the thing. Like people want to consume this media at home and the easiest way possible, and removing the boxes and the consoles, removing consoles from the equation or doing something like we're actually about to talk about right now, I think is super interesting.
Well, I mean, you see it kind of in the movie industry right now. For a while, people were like, "Oh, when is Sony going to come out their streaming service?" Because they're the only big studio that doesn't have it. And they had Crackle, which they sold to because it just didn't take off. Because they saw that there's a shit ton of money if you just get the big companies in a bidding war for your licensed stuff. And I think that's what like a Tencent sees right now. That's what an Embracer sees, and that's what probably EA and Activision see as well. Of just like, hey, you know, eventually, Game Pass might not work, or eventually Sony's going to get into the actually taking PS Now serious business.
Right.
So there's money to be made
Which it
now.
looks like they kind of are. They're like putting their toe in the water with some of the games that they're getting, So
Yeah.
it's definitely interesting. Like, yeah, like I mean, they bring it up in the chat, like Bad76, like PS View is gone. Yeah, it's gone, it's dead. But Sony as a company, as a corporation, got a ton of information and a ton of data from what works and what doesn't work from that system.
Yeah. So I think we're definitely going to see more acquisitions now, just so they can package that up to one of the major.
Well, there's
streamers.
rumors. I didn't get a chance to read any of them last week because like every time I'd see them, my schedule would be out of whack. But like, and obviously it didn't get a ton of fuel or anything to it. But like the Netflix PlayStation like kind of merger thing like sounds like super interesting, and I don't know. I haven't read or known anything other than just seeing some stuff on it, but that would be really interesting and weird, I think.
Yeah, so Netflix announced a couple weeks ago that they are going to add game streaming to their services, and they were looking into partnerships. There was a data mine of like their database, that shows that like Ghost of Tsushima was listed in their database. No one knows exactly what that could mean. We
Could
do
have
know
been a
there's
television show, right?
Yeah, because we know there's a Ghost of Tsushima movie coming from the John Wick director,
Right.
but people kind of tied that because I think there's another PlayStation property in that database that doesn't have a movie or show announced.
Okay.
So there is like rumors going around that because Netflix says like we're going to add games to our current subscriptions without adjusting the price, means that they could reach out to Sony of just like, hey, we know you have PlayStation Now.
Do you know how much money Netflix would have to give Sony? Like, I don't even want to think about what that would cost. Like,
there's also a lot of infrastructure stuff that Netflix would have to figure out,
Yeah.
which is why we haven't seen Game Pass on TVs yet, is because
Right.
it's like not every TV's Bluetooth compatible.
correct. Yeah.
So Netflix, if they roll this out, I can see them with a small partnership with Sony. I mean, not small as in how much money they would have to pay Sony, but as in small as
who
in
could
like
buy who? Could Netflix buy
neither.
Sony? Yeah, neither. Yeah, they're
No,
both kind of like on the
neither.
same plateau, right?
Yeah, because
Okay.
Netflix bleeds money a
Right.
lot, but
Yeah.
they're
And
one of those businesses.
Sony makes a ton but spends a ton.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Like Sony
So-
makes enough to run itself and some profit, but not
Yep.
enough to buy like a Netflix. They're both billion-dollar businesses.
Right.
But Netflix does have enough money that if they want to throw like, I don't know, I'll just throw a random number out there, $1 billion at Sony
Yeah.
to bring some exclusives to their
Yep.
Netflix gaming section, Sony would be crazy to like balk at that offer
Yeah,
and
for
say
sure.
like no, because then they can turn that $1 billion into another acquisition down the line, and then continue to charge Netflix more money in the future to do it. But yeah, that was the thing. It's not necessarily like a merger, but the games popped up in their database, but it's still unknown like how exactly Netflix plans to deliver on any of this
Right.
sort of thing. They dabbled in games before. I mean, Bandersnatch is basically an FMV game. They brought the Minecraft Telltale games over to Netflix at one point.
Couldn't you do like the Netflix game mail service or was that, didn't they have a gaming division in Netflix at one point
They
in time?
did for a very brief time, but I
Yeah.
don't know if there would be money necessarily in that.
In physical media, yeah.
Yeah, but if they want to like partner with the Until Dawn studio, which I'm forgetting the name of, those games would easily transition over to like a Netflix service because
Yeah.
you can just like point and click the adventure or like the dialogue options. So there's a lot they could do there with that in the future. But let's move on to the big story. Valve announced the Steam Deck, which is basically a portable PC that's running Steam OS. So this thing starts at $399 for a 64 gig, basically flash memory hard drive, and then it goes up to $549 for a 256 gig NVMe unit, and then there's a 512 gig one as well. So this thing has the internals, like in the specs, but basically we're looking at somewhere between a PS4 and an Xbox Series S, like somewhere in that range.
A PS4 Pro?
PS4 Pro-ish,
Okay.
kind of. The reason I say Series X is because it's basically using the Series
Series
S.
S.
S, yeah,
Yeah.
S. It's using the Series S technology, but just kind of lessened
Hmm.
down to like a PS4 scale. So it's kind of in there and in that range. It has a like 7-inch 720p LCD screen. So again,
Which
that's why
is
they don't need a
totally,
ton of
yeah,
tech.
totally fine. It's the same size as the
Uh,
Switch screen.
yeah,
Like,
and it has an expandable SD card slot
awesome.
that you can load other operating systems in. So you can run Windows if you purchase a Windows license.
Which could,
Two to
in theory, mean you could play Game Pass games.
Yep, Epic Store. I think Epic already said like,
Yep.
yeah, if you run Windows, you can run it on this.
Yep.
So 2 to 8 hour battery life, which is similar to what we got when the Switch first launched. That's all dependent on if your game's running 30 frames or 60 frames, or if it's running
Hmm.
on medium to high. The hardware says it can run most AAA games at medium to high
Hmm.
settings,
Which you
which I
really wouldn't notice a difference on a 7-inch screen. So.
yeah, exactly. A 720p 7-inch
Hmm.
screen. You're
Yep.
not going to notice too much of a difference with that. There will be a dock sold separately, no price for the dock, but it's going USB-C out, so I don't even necessarily think you need a dock. You just need the
Right.
USB-C
And
cable.
unless the dock does something to help improve performance,
Yeah,
going
unless
to
it
a
does
TV.
something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Because the
In
Switch
this,
dock does that slightly.
um, very,
Slightly.
very slight.
Yeah.
The only thing is it is running SteamOS. SteamOS is Linux based, so not every game is compatible as of right now. Um, Valve does have a software, it's Proton, that basically translates the games from PC to Linux, Windows to Linux. But its compatibility is roughly 10 to 20% of the Steam library as of today,
Hmm.
which I Googled it. It's like 7,000 games. So still a good chunk
Significant
of
number, but
games as of today.
yep.
And this isn't coming out until December. Um, it won't run games like Destiny, Apex, or PUBG as of today because the anti-cheat software those games use don't run on SteamOS, though Valve has said that they are going to work with those anti-cheat softwares to get them compatible with SteamOS and the Proton software. But that is a lot of stuff I just threw out.
Yeah.
Dave, just thoughts on this?
I think someone like you, like as an indie guy, like this has got your name written all over it. Like I could totally see you downloading a game, a small indie title game, 15 gig, 20 gig game, and taking this to and from work. Like I could totally
Mhm.
see you doing something like this. Um, I mean, I feel like, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this patchwork gaming PC that I currently have is better than that Switch, than that Steam Deck, or it's slightly better. Like if that's a 7, mine's a 7.5.
Yeah, potentially. I would have to look
Yeah.
at your stuff just a little
Yeah.
bit more. But
Um,
because this is using newer tech.
correct. Yeah.
But you're using more powerful older tech,
Right.
but this slightly. So
Yeah.
it's like give and
So
take a couple things.
I do think it's super, super fascinating and intriguing to tell somebody like, hey, you want to get into the PC gaming, buy this device for $400, which is essentially the cost of a console. And you can plug it in
Or
your TV.
Switch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you can plug it into your
$50.
TV. If you already own a PlayStation or an Xbox, your controller will just connect. And you can
Mhm.
plug it into your TV and you can play. So if there's games that are PC only that interest you, and I haven't heard anything about any kind of LAN adapter. If the dock has a LAN adapter, I think that'd be a huge deal. Um, I think in terms of, because I feel like if you try to build a PC, like a very low spec PC today, to do something similar to that, you're spending more than $400.
Oh, for sure.
So you're spending more than $700 probably. Because then you
Yeah,
got to
you're
think
probably
about,
in that range,
yeah,
exactly.
you got to think about like a monitor, and then like a decent monitor versus like most people already have a television, like obviously, or and then it's they tried to do this years ago with what was that called, like the Steam box.
Steam machines.
Yeah, and they essentially were trying to build a PC as a console, and now they just decided, hey, you know what? Let's make a portable PC which is essentially what that is. That has the ability to like let's just make a Switch that plays Steam, like, and that's what they did. And based on the pre-orders and the demand, so far they've hit it out of the park. And version 2.0 in 12 months will just be even better.
Yeah, and it's definitely, they are being really aggressive with this price. I mean, they announced this the day the OLED pre-orders went up, to where if like you were thinking of getting an OLED Switch and you already had a Switch, for $50 more, you're opening yourself up to a whole other library
and the
of
only thing that
games.
you possibly are cutting yourself off from is Mario, Zelda, Donkey Kong, etc., like the first party stuff. But any of those other independent games, you almost always hear PC, PlayStation, PC, Xbox, which is the same now, and Switch PC. Like in terms of like a new indie title, it's I can't think of, unless it's got a big publisher backing behind it. I can't think of somebody that's like, hey, we're making a brand new game, like Death's Door that just came out this week. Like, we're making a brand new game and we're doing PlayStation, PC, Xbox, Switch, Wii. Like they're not financially able to do that now. Yeah. So I think that this is super, super interesting and super smart and aggressive on Valve's part.
Yeah, and speaking of like indie games, you often see indie games coming to PC first because it's more profitable.
Early access, PC. Like all that,
the only thing that's going to stop this is that the Linux, the Steam OS, and they are going to have to work over the next couple months to get. Because
as soon as somebody gets their hands on this thing, they're breaking that shit. Somebody's going to jailbreak the hell out of that.
But they're open to it.
Right.
Like they're just load a new operating system on an SD card, and then you can swap between.
And
they're
not using they're not using crazy peripheral memory sticks. Like they're not trying to reinvent the wheel or try to do anything. They're just taking. They probably assigned an engineer to this. Like, hey, they gave them a Switch and they said, make Steam work on it and tell us what you need.
Yeah. See how small you can get this, or they probably gave them a screen size to work from. Just get this to work 720p. I saw a lot of people were a little disappointed about it being 720p screen because the OLED is out, but it's on a 7-inch screen. Like, I know most phones are running like way higher resolutions, but it at least gets them the ability to.
My phone costs more than that.
Yeah, but it at least gets them in the ballpark where they can run a game at 60 frames per second on like a high setting.
Yep, and the dock will be a big deal. But honestly, if you're somebody that's enamored with frame rate and resolution, and
for you, anyways.
that's not for you. Like.
Yeah.
And then the games like you talked about, like the Destiny and the Apex, those are always connected. Like, people don't really want to play those games. They already get annoyed playing those games over a Wi-Fi connection as it is. Like, and now you want to connect, like you want to be like, I don't know, at McDonald's playing Apex or something. No, like you don't want to do that. You can, but it's not a good experience. Like,
though, if it wants to be successful, like Destiny, Apex, and PUBG are in the top 10 of Steam.
Yeah, I agree. So it has to run on there, but those are going to be for people. I feel like that if anybody that's already been playing those games is sitting in front of their desk or taking their PC and hooked it up to their 60-inch TV and they're laying on their couch playing it already.
Yeah, that would only translate to like the most hardcore people that would want to play those games. But yeah, everything's going to hinge on the Steam OS compatibility for games, just because, like, 7,000 games does seem like a lot, but Steam covers decades of games. So compatibility would be important. But if this is successful enough, it will actually finally force developers to develop for Linux, develop for Steam OS. Because right now, they just have to develop for Windows and you can sell on Steam.
And then it makes you wonder too, though, like how is licensing and DRM going to work? Like,
it's just Steam. It's just Steam. So you're
right. But I'm saying I'm not connected. I'm driving, or I'm a passenger in a car. Like, and I downloaded Hades. Like, how often do I have to refresh my license?
So Steam does have an offline mode currently.
Okay.
So
how often do you have to get on? Yeah. Okay.
I think it's every couple days.
Okay.
Or so. So Steam does have an offline mode that you can work with. I'm sure someone can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but they do have an offline mode. But you have to sign into the offline mode. You have to be online and then say, "Put me offline."
Right.
You can't just permanently leave it in offline mode. So that shouldn't be too much of an issue. They might even want to stretch out that offline mode in terms of
7 days, 10 days, or whatever.
Yeah, and then work that way, and just have it just work that way. But yeah, like there's a huge market for this potentially, if they can get it to work, and get that compatibility there. I was looking at it because I was like, I'm thinking about like if they announce a Switch Pro, I'll buy a Switch Pro. But now I'm looking at it and I'm just like, oh, maybe I'll just get this. I'll deal with 720p on a screen because I don't really give a shit. I'm already blind, so I don't really need like a crazy screen on my portable device. But I'm super intrigued by this. I imagine that you were intrigued by this a little bit.
Oh yeah.
But then thinking about it, like most of the indie games, you probably wouldn't be too into.
I'm trying to get better with it, but I mean, it's like
Yeah.
but I don't. If I'm going somewhere, I'm usually driving. It is interesting because I think it's super cool, or like I said, like super interesting for somebody that maybe travels a lot. There's a guy that I play games with, Tim. He works on airport maintenance, like on the physical airports, or. So he's like 1 week he's in Minnesota, and another week or no, I'm sorry, Reef is the one that does airport, but you know, and then another guy, Tim, he works on ATMs, and like he's like, yeah, I can get a call tomorrow, and I got to drive to Oklahoma. I'm like, oh, where do you live? He's like, I live in like middle of Minnesota. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, I got to drive down there and work on it for like a day, and then I'm done. And I was like, so somebody like throw that in his bag, know that he can, with a DualShock or an Xbox controller, and know that he can get to a hotel to plug it in, and he's got his Steam library. Like that's a huge deal because like I can't just take my gaming PC with me somewhere if I'm going to my mom and dad's house for like the weekend.
Yeah, that would be a headache.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was going to be out. I think first wave's already sold out. Will be out in December, and then wave 2 or 3 are like February, March. So scalpers are already going crazy on this, even though Steam thought they had a solution for that, which is you couldn't have a new Steam account and do this. You had to have a Steam account period, and then you had to put $5 down. Doesn't matter. Scalpers are gonna scalp.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can figure out a way to do this. It's just kind of crazy that like because of the pandemic, we're in a chip shortage. We're shortages just in general for tech, and
Valve's like, here's a new device.
yeah, and then Nintendo's in the same boat of being like, here's a newish device around the same time. So hopefully Valve has a decent stock for this. But if you can only buy it through Valve, it's really not that big a deal. Like I don't see you buying this at a Target or a Best Buy for at least a year or two.
Yeah, I definitely don't see like, and I'm sure that they're gonna just essentially. I mean, that's why the pre-orders are so far in advance. Obviously, they're just gonna probably make what's been pre-ordered, and then they might have some. It'll just probably be a slowly available thing, like, oh, we have new orders on January 1st, and you'll get them by March 1st or something. Like I could see something like that. So. But it's super cool, and it kind of ties into like one of our questions a little bit as well of like, okay, so within the last month we've got a Switch OLED announced, and now the Steam Deck, which by the way, like when I googled it, the first thing that showed up was Stream Deck.
Yeah, and Stream Deck announced a new Stream Deck that day.
Yep.
Elgato announced a new Stream Deck,
so
which is hilarious.
It was crazy. And I'll just jump to one of the questions. Like today is the last day for Vita new releases. So it's like on the day or the month that Vita is officially, or not officially dead, but not seeing any more new hardware or new software. I'm sorry, 2 new hardware things are being announced, and pre-orders for that hardware are just flying off the shelves.
Yeah, it's.
So is the Vita too early?
No, the Vita was totally too early. And again, questions from BT Game Night. But like the Vita definitely. I put out like a joking tweet last week where I'm just like, PlayStation bosses from 2011 are like, now you guys want a powerful handheld?
Yeah.
Like they were just too early with it. Like the Switch is now just adding an OLED screen to the Switch, and Vita launched with an OLED screen.
Yeah. I guess, I mean, looking back, if you ask me, Vita's biggest failure, other than marketing and, like Vita's biggest hardware failure, in my opinion, is the lack of 2 triggers on each side.
Yeah, but I forgot what I was listening to where they mentioned that like when the Sony gave up on the Vita is when it was hacked. Like soon as people were able to like hack the Vita, then Sony was just like, all right, we're done with this. But yeah, the Vita was just ahead of its time. Like, I'm probably going to load up the Vita later today. Hopefully my battery still charges because it's been like a year since I turned it on. and I'm hoping to just pick up some PS1 games and just mess around with the Vita just a little bit, though that store is probably terrible. That's probably hopefully they didn't do what they did to the PS3 store, where the PS3 store is just like, here's the best of in the first section. You want to find anything, you have to search for it. So hopefully the Vita store is a little bit better than that. But yeah, it's just kind of crazy, and I wonder if Sony. I know Sony's not going to release a Vita 2 or a PSP 2, but I'm wondering if someone in their research and development is just kind of like, let's kick around some ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
well, we've seen all those like trademarks for like the split controller. Like, and I'm like,
yeah,
in my mind, like, are they gonna like release a DualSense 5 that you can split and attach to your phone? You know, like similar to how like the Razer Kraken works now and stuff like, and you know, like try to. Same thing with Xbox. Like, there's been rumors about Xbox looking at the DualSense and taking inspiration from the DualSense and trying to redo their controller, which I think Xbox could get away with a you know, an Xbox controller 2.0 because there wasn't really that much of a change from the Xbox One controller to the Series controller, if at all. I think they added one button.
yeah,
And then so like there's a lot of things that the way that gaming is kind of changing, and depending on how the success of the Steam machine, the Steam Deck, you know, could, you know, kick off some other hybrid style things of. But I don't necessarily think that, you know, Xbox, like, we're not going to see Xbox bring out a handheld because they're just going to double down on playing on your tablet and playing on your phone. And hopefully Sony can, you know, try to get something like that going, you know, and that's what they supposedly bought Gaikai years ago for, and now I feel like Gaikai's technology has been passed like 6 times.
well, yeah, they used it to start PS Now, and then I feel like leadership, which happens at a lot of corporations, is they're like, leaders are like, oh, PS Now was the previous CEO's pet project. That's not my pet project. My pet project's something else.
Right.
But now we're at the point where Game Pass has been so successful that now they have to look at PS Now and try a little bit harder to make PS Now more of a viable service. So I'm wondering what the sale count for the next Nintendo Switch is going to be, or the next sale count for the Steam Deck's going to be, before Sony starts kicking up their R&D to be like, how much would it cost us? What could we do in the mobile space to see if they can compete? Because these corporations aren't going to leave money on the table if they feel like there's money to be made. So it's either going to be Sony being like, all right, let's double down on PS Now, or let's go back to the handheld market because there's a demand for it. So I would love to know what like that imaginary number is on a board of this. Like, if Steam Deck sells this much, we'll consider doing a PSP2 or a PS Vita. Which I think they just named it PSP2 because the Vita didn't last too long.
Yeah.
But this could be game changing, or this could be the Steam machine and nothing happens.
Yeah, it could just. I mean, this thing could just come out and just be like, "Oh, this is trash. It doesn't run any of the new games well, and it just doesn't work." So,
or it's just fine, or you know, like, it's not even like
enough.
great. It's just like it's fine. It
could be PC. Like an entry level of like, "Hey, I've had my Steam Deck for 2 or 3 years now. I really am enjoying the PC gaming. I'm mostly using it hooked up into my TV. I think I'm ready to drop, you know, $1,100 on a good PC, on a good gaming PC."
This just turns into an education thing for children, where it's just like, hey, your kid's first portable PC that runs Linux, let them learn how to code on this thing or something like that.
Yeah.
There's
I love it though. Like, this, in terms of conversation pieces and things to talk about, like something like this is super, super cool. Like, when this was announced, I was like, what is that? Because it just looks like a Game Gear on steroids.
It did look like a Game Gear. I'm wondering how hot this thing runs.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially with the NVMe drives, because those run hotter than the flash drive one. But yeah, so that's it for news.
Nyko will come out with some fan that slaps to the back of it that makes it like this long cone.
Yeah. They will. Are they still around? They probably are.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
All right. So yet again, this segment has to be talked about, and that means that something got delayed. So what's been delayed? So first we'll do Riders Republic. Just got pushed back like a month, right? Like 6 weeks.
Yeah, September 2nd to October 28th. Yeah,
it's almost 2 months. Like, okay, that's not a huge deal. And then I guess something at this point that I'm happy that got delayed is Rainbow Six Extraction. Got delayed till 2022. 2 reasons I'm happy. September, October, and November are packed full. Yeah. So pushing this out, I think, is great. And 2, I think I even said it on our E3 recap from the Ubisoft Forward. It just looked kind of bland.
Yeah, not only that, it would be going against Back for Blood, which is the spiritual successor, and Extraction definitely is built on the back of like the Left 4 Dead 4-player co-op experience. So this just getting out of the way of
Mm-hmm.
that will be very helpful for this game long term. As opposed to if it was like, oh, let's compete against the 2 or 3 other co-op PvE games that are
Yeah,
coming
and
out within the
trying to
next
kick
month.
off a new season like in October, like release
Yeah.
it, let some players mess with it for like 2 weeks. Start season 1 on February 1st.
If anything, you could do the do what Overwatch did to Battleborn. When Battleborn
Yeah,
released, Overwatch released a beta.
yeah,
You could do Back for Blood
yeah.
releases
That's
and then
yeah,
just
yeah,
release a Rainbow Six Extraction
yeah.
beta, just to be competitive. But this is going to be beneficial to like I think
Yeah,
every
it
game
just
coming out this holiday.
it looks super cool, but it also looked like there was a lot of downtime, and that's not really what I want in a PvE cooperative shooter.
For sure, for
So,
sure.
all right, what we're planning on watching. So, for me, I think I'll start, and then I think we'll merge into two things that I feel like that we watched. So like, and then we'll kind of just transition to yours.
Yeah.
One I know you watched, and one I think you assume I watched. So I downloaded Need for Speed Burnout Paradise Remastered. Game Pass.
Okay.
Messed around with that. Johnny as a boy has like times that are like 20 seconds faster than me, and I already caught myself in like running the same course like 2 or 3 times to see if I could shave like 10 seconds off. So I was playing
On
that.
PlayStation?
No, on Xbox on Game Pass.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
okay.
not.
I should probably download that on Game Pass.
Let me just get the name of it for sure, just so I get it. Make sure I get
Was
it.
it Hot Pursuit?
Yes, because the cop one.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
Need
yeah,
for Speed
okay.
Hot Pursuit Remastered. Looked really good. Like, I guess I didn't realize that it was like remastered. I didn't realize how old the game was, but like the
Yeah.
systems that are in place in terms of like the score chasing and the timing is cool. Figuring out what's a shortcut, what's not a shortcut, is fun. I forgot about like laying the spike strips, and it's just an arcade sim racer. It's just fun to it's just fun to play. Like, it was just
Yeah.
I was playing at like midnight on like Friday night because my sleep schedule's broken. So yeah, it was just like a lot of fun. It's part of EA Play, so it's on Game Pass. I made the step forward. I never got a chance to play it, but I took the step forward and I downloaded Knockout City, so I still need to play that.
Nice,
So, but at
nice.
least I got it downloaded. Yeah, I was just kind of going through the Game Pass store really quick and downloading a couple games. I dabbled in Destiny again some more, just messing with some stuff, getting some materials. Relatively easy strike to do the Grandmaster difficulty on, to get some stuff that I need for just later on, and that's definitely something that I was able to just sit down on the couch and I'm still kind of like, as I was adjusting to my new sleep schedule, I was in a little bit of a fog, so it's just like mindless game playing. And then like still watching a little bit of Smallville. Unfortunately, like I'm falling asleep in between Smallvilles, and that's not Smallville's fault. That's my schedule's fault. So I think I'll have to go back and watch a couple more of those. And then we watched with Owen. He sat through the whole thing. We watched Space Jam: New Legacy. Um,
Yep, I saw that.
yeah, I didn't hate it.
It was fine.
Yeah,
It was
it was fine.
fine.
It was
disappointing, but fine.
Yeah, I don't even think I was disappointed. There was a couple funny moments. I mean, LeBron can't act, so like that's nothing that seemed to really surprise me. My wife actually had me look up if that was his wife, and it's not.
It's not,
So
no.
yeah, so those are actors and actresses. And then I can't think of his name right now. I just heard it this morning, but the villain, the actor.
Don Cheadle.
Yeah, I thought he was fantastic.
I thought he was good, but everything he was given,
Yeah, at
script-wise, was really
end, it
bad.
got kind of wonky. Like at the end, like the second half of the game, like from a sports perspective, of like in the third quarter, both teams scored 1 point, and then the other basket was worth like 480 points.
It's
Like,
funny though, is because the third quarter was
Yeah.
the most entertaining quarter.
right, but there was
and
no
not much-
basketball.
Yeah. It's.
So
I recorded a whole 2.5 hour
Yeah.
podcast about this for every movie
I think
ever. I'll put a link in the description.
Yeah, as a kid, like if you watch the original Space Jam, or if you've recently watched the original Space Jam, I think that the throwbacks and the connections to them, they were well done.
No, I thought they were terrible.
Really?
Actually. they didn't know what they wanted to do. It's like sometimes they wanted to acknowledge Space Jam 1 existed, and other times they ignored it, and that frustrated the shit out of
Oh,
me. Again, I
I
did a
guess
whole
maybe
2 hour
I might have
podcast.
to watch it again. I might have to watch the first one and then watch this one again. It's on HBO Max, so you can watch it or you can go to the theater to watch it. So there was a couple like just funny moments and that like yeah,
I
it was.
hated the,
Go
the
ahead.
the Ready Player One aspect of it. I hated that. Just like the server verse of just like, hey, here's all the stuff that you can
Oh
stream on
yeah.
HBO Max.
Yeah,
In this
people were
world,
saying that like Warner Brothers threw a bunch of villains in there too, like as their properties, and maybe I just missed them. Somebody's like, "Oh, and the It Clown was there." I'm like, I didn't see him.
he was by the Monster or the Goon Squad's bench. It was like
Okay.
him. I think Clockwork Orange
Yeah,
characters
I
were in there.
heard
There's
that
a lot of
too.
weird
Yeah.
things in that thing. Yeah, I had a lot to say about this movie. I could go on and talk about this for all day. Uh, but yeah, I think it was fine. I just don't think it had any right to call itself a Space Jam movie. I think it would have been fine if it was called something else.
Yeah.
But it just I don't know. It was fine.
Yeah,
It was fine. It had
somebody
its
asked like
moments.
what did I think of LeBron scolding his kids for playing video games? I
He
think
was the
that
villain.
yeah, I think that's more of like a that's just kind of that facade that's out there, like parents like telling their kids they can't play games all the time, and but at the same time, like I haven't delved deep into LeBron's like past or anything like that as much as I know about like Jordan stuff. Like the only reason we heard about Jordan's like father and stuff like that is because unfortunately like he was murdered. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of conversation about how like Jordan talking about how he was as a father. And then there's we don't know a lot about LeBron's upbringing in terms of like
Yeah, like we just know his mom raised
yeah,
him, and that's
so
we saw a
like
little bit of that in the
the
movie. But
perception of like, oh, you just have to work, like you have to, like I don't think that like I think that's just tying to the parent that'd be watching the show with their kids, like the parent that would be older than me and maybe the same age as some of our viewers on Twitch right now. But I don't think that's the reality anymore. Like, and I feel like that people that are writing scripts or directing these movies feel like that is the reality, and it's not.
I just think it's like a wild concept of just like the original Space Jam. Again, I fucking spent way too much time
Yeah.
thinking about Space Jam the last couple days. But it's just like in original Space Jam, it was like Michael Jordan rediscovering his love for basketball, and in Space Jam: A New
Right.
Legacy, it's
Which was a story that
LeBron.
happened in real life.
Yes,
Like
and
that
then in
actually happened
this,
to Michael Jordan. What happened in New Legacy did not happen to LeBron James.
yeah,
So,
and in this, they kind of play up LeBron's villain persona, so then they can give him character growth as he sheds that villain persona, basically, if that makes sense. Like LeBron in this one is playing into the character people think he really is in life, and then sheds that like facade as he
mhm.
goes on through the movie. Which is an interesting and wild concept if you think about it. To be like, hey, your star of the movie is going to be kind of unlikable for the first like
Mhm.
20 minutes until he finally gets past that. But yeah, talking way too much about like a deeper meaning in Space Jam: A New Legacy, but yeah, I think it was fine. I also saw Black Widow, which I thought was really good.
Yeah.
I wish it came out a couple years ago when it would
Like
fit
that's
in
what
the
everybody was
timeline.
saying. Like it should have like it should have came out before Infinity War, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, it should have,
Yeah.
but it didn't. But it was still a fun movie.
Again,
Like
not to spoil anything, but the post credit scene that I talked about last week, did you get that? Like that's kind of weird.
no, I
Okay.
mean,
Do you understand what I was saying though?
yeah, it timeline wise, it doesn't really make sense. It's
Yeah.
just like, was she visiting in the current day, or was she visiting previously, and then it like messes up the
Yeah.
timeline, but not in a Loki timeline
Right.
way, as in just like based on what we know of this movie,
Yeah.
like it just seemed
I,
kind of weird.
I'm almost done with Loki. Again, I was trying to stay up Friday and watch Loki with Angela, and I passed out on the couch at the end of like the halfway through the last episode. Again, not Loki's fault. My broken sleep
Yeah,
schedule's fault. Seeing a little bit that I've seen on the timeline, apparently they introduced a character that's like way over my head. So
yeah. They basically introduced something that will forever change the universe.
yeah.
But we'll just say it that.
Right.
But
Which
I don't
again,
feel like that's
yeah,
spoiling
again, I
anything.
have my own issues with doing that amongst the assuming that your crowd and my wife's like, well, Dave, if they love Marvel, they have Disney Plus anyways. That's what she tells me. Like,
No,
it's-
and that's
and
I
she's
think
not
that's
wrong, but I
Disney's
think it's
logic.
just kind of one of the things of like, if I'm just taking my dad to the movies with me or something, then he's not going to really understand what's going on. And if I have to sit there at the end of a movie and have a 20 or 30-minute conversation with him about a timeline thing, he's going to be like, whatever, I checked out. Like,
Yeah, it definitely makes it harder to onboard new fans. But Disney at this point is just like they want that problem. They want your
Right.
dad to be like, you know what, I'm going to watch all these movies
Yep,
and subscribe to Disney Plus.
I agree. I just it's a new world. Like you wouldn't, like it was the same thing that I still remember like the disclaimer at the beginning of one of the shows for Agents of Shield. Warning: if you have not seen Thor, like they had something.
Yeah, now it's just like we make $1 billion every movie.
Yeah,
You've seen.
Yeah, but it was just fun. It was just so funny where they're like, "Do not watch this show if you have any interest in interest in seeing Thor or something like." I don't even remember if it was Thor, but a movie that came out within this month affects the outcomes of some things that are happening in this television show, and people were pissed that it was there like that. They were upset. Like then that was a long time ago though. Was that like 5 years ago, 6 years ago now or something?
Yeah, but like 2014 probably.
Yeah. So, all right. Do you play anything else or?
No, just a little Pokemon Snap. And then that was pretty much it. It's just been I since I kind of work retail, it's one of those things where I have this week off, which means when you have vacation time, they punish you before your vacation time, and I'm very much in that like I'm being punished for asking for my time off. So I worked way too much last week. So didn't really have time for games. I just watched Black Widow, watched Space Jam: New Legacy, and then finished season 1 of Mythic Quest and watched like 2 or 3 episodes into season 2.
Would you have been disappointed if you went to the theaters in normal circumstances for Black Widow?
No, I think it would have been fine.
Okay.
I think it would have been fine. I also prefer to just watch it at home anyways. This is the thing I've been asking for forever. So I was fine. Like again,
you definitely seem like you and your significant other definitely feel like, you know what, I'm totally content with whatever food I want that's in my kitchen, laying on my couch, covering up with a blanket and some big pillows, and just doing what I want. And hey, I got to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Pause.
Yeah. Go to the corner store and buy a $2 box of popcorn that has 3 packs in it, as opposed to spending $18 for one. So
what they say, rewind that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like, oh, you don't know who that is? Pause. Okay, let me mansplain what this character means and why this is important.
Yeah. Instead of standing up in the theater. Okay, guys, pause. I got to explain something to my girlfriend. Pause.
So I prefer that.
All right. So questions and comments using hashtag AskDigitalDays. You can send them through through Facebook, through Discord, any of those. Somebody put one actually in the chat. Let me go back up here and find it. So we'll start with Farmer John's real quick, so I think we can answer this quickly. So PS5 still sold out across the board. How long do you think that this will continue? Do you think they are selling more of next gen and it's because of the shortages? I don't think that you. I think a couple weeks ago, a couple months ago, I felt like that you were going to see boxes on shelves this holiday. I don't think that's going to be the case now.
No.
And they are selling more. They're outpacing the PS4 right now. PS5 is outpacing PS4. So at this point in time, I don't feel like Sony or the retailers are having any pressure to have this in the stores. Again, I think if you diligently want a PS5, I think you can get it. But you just have to you have to be diligent.
Well, we've been recording it. PS5 was up on Sony Direct as we were recording it. Just like Sony Direct started to drop, and then yesterday there was like Best Buy and another thing. So yeah, you can still get them. It's getting easier. Like I'm seeing less and less people disappointed every time there is a drop at a retailer. I still think we might see something during Black Friday at some retailers, depending on how bad like the variants for COVID get. So I think we're getting more and more to where it's just like whatever happens, sadly. So I see retailers still pushing it this holiday.
I don't necessarily think it's a panic to buy it. I just think that there's some like solid stuff you can play. I know a lot of people were waiting to play Miles Morales until they got PS5. Returnal, whether if you like that style of game, it's a fantastic game for you. Ratchet and Clank. It goes to Tsushima Director's Cut. I think the library is starting to come up, and then the next gen upgrades. Like Destiny having a better upgrade. Some of these other games, just running better on PS5 is making it more tangible. 6-7 months post launch to own a next gen console, whether it's an Xbox Series or a PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 is obviously winning the console arm race because the other team's just not playing that arms race with them. But I don't think it's like I don't think that people are panic buying them. I just think that they're like they know that the kids or teenagers, young adults have had 6-7 months of saving up to be able to get them, and now they want it. So.
Mm-hmm. No, agreed.
Yeah. So, next question from Stefan: which game do you think you didn't give a fair chance to back in the day and want to revisit it now? The easiest thing for me to say it's not that I didn't give it a fair chance to. I just got distracted away from it and haven't finished it and want to finish it. It's Horizon, and it's not that I didn't give it a fair chance. Like, it's just that it didn't initially grab me right away, or I got distracted by something probably going on in Destiny. So.
Yeah, for me, so I'm currently in the process of trying to rebuild my PS3 collection. I was pretty poor, so I'd have to like buy a game and then trade it in as soon as the value was like still pretty high, and then get another game. So I traded in a lot of games that like I bought, and then I was like, I don't really have time for this, so I traded it in for something bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm trying to get like Asura's Wrath and 3D Dot Game Heroes on the PS3, but because of that PSN potential closure, the prices for PS3 games has skyrocketed. They've kind of gone down a little bit since Sony said they're not doing that anymore. So I'm trying to track down 3D Dot Game Heroes and Asura's Wrath, which I think I could buy Asura's Wrath digitally on Xbox, but 3D Dot Game Heroes I need to get a physical copy for.
Are garage sales a thing in Chicago at all?
They are, but so many of these people now
actually know what they have, and they with eBay existing, they just snap a picture of something and Google it, and then it's much easier to find the information. So you're not going to find like grandma like with a table of PS3 games at her house or something.
All
like that.
These like bougie people that live in like my neighborhoods, they do garage sales and they try and sell stuff for like $5 off MSRP.
Like it's an antique shop.
Yeah, and it's just like, what are you doing? Everything here should be $1 or $5 if it's good. That's how garage sales I always grew up with work. But yeah, like I wish, and then like the used game stores are just as bad. They definitely know the value of their stuff. So like I don't know, like I haven't been to a flea market since COVID.
Okay.
I kind of want to go to one.
Yeah.
Just because you can usually get someone who's just like, yeah, I stole all this stuff. It's $5 each thing. So like I want to do that to try and track down some of these games, but I doubt I'm going to find 3D Dot Game Heroes at a flea market because it's such a very specific game. But currently trying to track down those two games, though I will like probably get Asura's Wrath digitally just to play that again because my friends hyped it up saying it was like one of the best games, and I remember trying it and be like, oh, it's just QuickTime events because I didn't appreciate
storytelling in games at that time.
Yeah, I just I didn't appreciate QuickTime event games at that time. But yeah, that's what I would like to work on.
All right, and he's in chat and he sent us a question as well at Currymaster. What are your thoughts on the new G.I. Joe Origins movie? Will we ever get a good G.I. Joe game? Will we ever get a good G.I. Joe game? No, I don't think so, because I just feel like that they would just rush it and they wouldn't give a studio the correct time it needs to do it right. And from a movie standpoint, I believe you're talking about Snake Eyes, and Snake Eyes looks super interesting to me. So.
Yeah, I think this would be a great idea for G.I. Joes to kind of build them into a cinematic universe by doing individual characters as movies. As for a game, I think the best you can hope for is they just add G.I. Joe characters to Fortnite. I think that's the best you're going to be able to get, is just, here's 10 G.I. Joe people in Fortnite. But I think it's a really good idea for the movies to build up the characters individually, and there's so many characters you can work with to build that out.
And unfortunately, what I think happened with Avengers and Square Enix is going to scare off companies from trying to do something, because we heard about this Avengers project for a long time, and that kind of like hit with a thud. And maybe like Guardians of the Galaxy will save it.
But G.I. Joe's isn't that big of a franchise for anyone to take that risk.
And also, it's not that big of a franchise for anybody under the age of like 25.
Yeah.
So
what I wouldn't mind though is if they want to give it a go, kind of take the Army Men or the Hot Wheels approach and just let you play a G.I. Joe's game where they're literally toys.
Yeah.
Like they're the 6-inch toys that I grew up with, or the 3-inch toys, not the Ken dolls that they grew up in the 80s with. but like the 3-inch dolls.
Uh-huh.
That would probably be an interesting way to take the GI Joe franchise, but I don't see them doing like a AAA GI Joe's game,
Right.
uh, unless it's in Fortnite. Um,
Yeah, it'd be super. Like, as there, I feel like the Ninja Turtles are kind of getting to that point too. We're seeing them like mixed into Smite and mixed into Brawlhalla, and they're kind of just sprinkling them everywhere. And like you and I have been fiending for like a new like, and maybe Shredder's Revenge will kind of like jumpstep this, but I've been saying it for years that I would love to see Rocksteady make essentially Batman Arkham Knight with Ninja Turtles, like
yeah,
like
like the dark
like,
comic book Ninja
yeah,
Turtle
like
would be great.
in that I want that combat. I want that, like hell at this point in time, take Gotham as the map and just call it New York or whatever, and like let them rip you apart. But if you can sit there 4-player and fight them like you fight Batman with the combos and stuff like that, like just please, like
Yeah.
so.
Though, speaking of 80s properties, and Curry Master in chat says there's so many 80 properties. Stop trying to make He-Man a thing, please. Like, He-Man was trash. It's trash now. Please stop trying to make He-Man a thing.
If you're gonna go with that
nostalgia for it.
animation style at this point in time, let's just do something cool with Thundercats.
Yeah, there's better things that you can do. Just forget He-Man. He-Man existed. Just move on.
All right, Spotlight. So, just like Michael mentioned, his every movie ever. I think every ever movie sounds better, but no, I'm just playing. Every movie ever, specifically in the entire episode, is just around Space Jam.
Yeah, 2.5 hours of Space Jam. It's mostly like because we're two kids from the '90s. Me and my co-host Chad, and grew up in Chicago. We talk about like our like love for the first Space Jam, and then we talk about A New Legacy. But it's 2.5 hours, so every movie ever.zone is the website you can get to, and you can.
We'll link it. We'll link it in the show notes if you want to hear Michael talk more about Space Jam. Maybe that's something I'll listen to in my car ride. I am going on vacation next week. About 3 hours from home, 3.5 hours from home. I tentatively right now, I'll say that I will not be here next week. So we are working on a co-host, and it's not 100% secured. It's a familiar voice, so we're working through that. If push comes to shove and something doesn't work, maybe you guys will get like a Patreon episode. But I am taking some shorter time off than I anticipated, but I am taking some time off of work to spend some time with my family before my daughter goes back to college, and my son won't be there, but he might be there one day. I don't think he will be at all before he gets ready to go back to college, because they're going back in like 2 weeks. Not going to the UP, but going to farther north than where I live. So UP is, if I'm going to drive to the UP, I'm just going to drive to Florida. Yeah. And then so that's what's going on for next week. So I mean, it might be 2 weeks before you hear from me. So I'll definitely have some stuff to talk about. But again, I always thank you guys for the support and the ability to know that I can take some time off and not worry about it. So that's always super helpful. And obviously thanks to Michael and anybody else that helps to just keep the episode train rolling. So you can follow us for more updates.
Make it 100 episodes. Can you believe that, guys?
Yeah,
couldn't make it 100 episodes.
Oh my gosh! I think I did record when I was in Virginia. I took my microphone.
Yeah, we did.
Don't make me take the MacBook and my Yeti with me, okay?
It's fine. It's gonna be a headache for me, and I have to like rearrange things. Like, no, it's fine.
So you can follow us on the social networks, mostly on Twitter at Digital Days Pod, where you'll see whatever when the episode's going to be. If it's going to be live streamed, there's a chance that it might not be live streamed, but we'll see. We'll update you guys. You can follow Michael's account at the first MJC 1ST. You can follow myself at Good Dave Hunt. Again, links to the show notes are in the Facebook group. In the show notes are links to the Facebook group, Discord server, patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming, $1 tip jar, $2 Discord private channel access, $5 24-hour early access to the episode, to the weekly episodes, and $7 gets you monthly bonus episode. You can go back as soon as you become a $7 Patreon subscriber. You can go back and listen to like the last 12 or 13 monthly episodes that we have done for bonus content. There's some interesting stuff in there. Like I said, that you may see one of those over the summer get used. If something happens, Michael gets called into work. We have our break glass in case of emergency depth of episodes going there. So, but other than that, I think that's it. You have anything else?
No, I'm fine. I'm good. I have a cold.
I gave Michael my cough through the microphone. It took about 4 episodes for it to transition through.
I went the whole episode without coughing, and it's like my body's just like, all right, we're done. We're gonna start coughing. No, that's it.
I
Just
think I only coughed once, and I muted it this time. So
yeah, I muted just right now,
yeah.
but yeah, it's just starting to hit me. It's good because I might not go to work tomorrow because I'm sick, and there's video evidence of me coughing now. Uh, but yeah,
maybe that'll be the YouTube thumbnail of you like leaning over, like.
yeah, hopefully. Yeah, just don't be a dick. See you guys next week.
Yep. Talk to y'all soon. Keep moving forward.